Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of Africa Today, where we get you the latest news and events taking place on the local scene and the African scene, of course. And we'll start off with our major top stories and reports. The humanitarian situation in Gaza remains critical, in aid deliveries playing a vital role in providing relief to the besieged population. More details in the following report.
An official North Sinai source said that 238 aid trucks had entered into the Gaza Strip, including 84 trucks from the Rafah crossing border and 154 trucks from the Karam Abu Salim crossing south of Rafah. The source explained that among the trucks that were entered through Rafah land crossing gate were 4 gas trucks for homes, 65 aid trucks, and 15 trucks for the private sector. According to the source, the 8 trucks include 49 food trucks, 7 flour trucks, a blanket truck, 2 tent trucks, a mattress truck, 3 cleaning supplies, and 2 water trucks, while the private sector trucks include 3 rice trucks, a nuts truck, a juice truck, 2 milk trucks, and other food and cleaning supplies trucks. Up to 154 trucks entered into the Gaza Strip through the Karam Abu Salim crossing gate, which included 136 aid trucks and 18 from the private sector. The source explained that the aid trucks include 19 flour trucks, 56 food supplies, 4 cleaning materials, 27 mattresses, 2 water trucks, 3 for blankets, a tent truck, a pasta truck, 4 sugar, 7 rice, a lentil truck, a food supplement truck, 3 for cereals, a milk truck, a tuna truck, a biscuit truck, a ghee truck, and 2 tea trucks.
Welcome back, and we're joined over the phone by Ambassador Medhat Meligy, former assistant to the foreign minister. Good afternoon, Mr. Ambassador.
Good afternoon.
Sir, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories said that he's appreciating Egypt's role in delivering aid. Would you please illustrate Egypt's role in delivering aid to Gaza so far?
Well, actually, I mean, if we remember, ever since this war erupted after the 7th of October, and Egypt took the full responsibility of helping the Palestinian citizens, especially when it comes to the humanitarian aid. If we all remember, the first convoy was forced in by the pressure of Egypt that it would not conclude the deal of exchanging the prisoners unless there would be accepted a convoy of humanitarian aid, and this is what really happened and took place at the time. And ever since, Egypt continued its role to the point that we can talk that 80% of the whole humanitarian aid that is entering the Gaza Strip is coming from the government and the people of Egypt, whether we are talking about the government itself or the NGOs or even regular people who want to help their brothers and sisters who are in the Gaza Strip. So this has been always the position of Egypt when it comes to humanitarian aid. We have always pushed to 2 things: that we don't want the liquidation of the Palestinian cause on one hand, and on the other hand, that enough humanitarian aid has to enter to the Palestinian people, since Israel is blocking all the possibilities for them to get any aid.
Right. Sir, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi stressed the importance of the role of the international community in resolving global and regional crises. How do you see the role of the international community with regards to the situation in Gaza in specific?
Well, if we want to talk about the international community as governments and administrations, I think the input of those governments has been, especially the one who has really an impact over Israel. Their influence has been, I could consider that minimal to what they could really do. But when it comes to the public opinion, I think this has tremendously changed ever since this war erupted. I mean, we've been listening to many reports, we've been seeing on TV many reports about the general public opinion who has changed, who has shifted actually from the support of Israel as a nation that is oppressed by its Arab neighbor, a colonial country that is implementing very harsh measures on fellow human beings, to the point that people are asking, where is the humanity in what Israel is doing? So those are two different things. The administrations are still clinging to the old theory that Israel should be always supported in a certain way unconditionally. And I'm talking here specifically about the United States, Canada, and west of Europe, especially the European Union and all the countries that are in their orbit. But when it comes to the people, I mean, even in the United States, look at how many universities now are having serious problems because of the students who are demonstrating incessantly towards restoration of peace in Gaza and the stopping of the massacres that is taking place against the Palestinian people. So I think that in the near future, in the medium and long term, we are going to see a shift in the policies of the traditionally Israeli allies, and this is going to change to another set of rules that are going to force Israel to a certain way to comply with the international law regulations and to the international humanitarian law as they should, like any in the world. Unfortunately, so far, Israel has proven that it is above the law and it can do whatever it wants. It's enjoying support, unconditional support from the United States, to the point that the United States is a full-fledged conflict now with Israel and putting itself in an isolation with Israel towards the world community. So we hope that these things will help to restore first the peace in the region, and second, to once again resume the peace talks in order to a Palestinian state, whether this is going to be the two-state solution as we want, or the kind of autodetermination that the Palestinian will accept, supposedly that has to be over the borders of the 4th of June, 1967.
Great. Sir, what concerns did the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sameh Shoukry, stress and raise about the humanitarian situation in Gaza, and how far could this affect the regional security and stability?
Well, I think that Mr. Shoukry has expressed 2 points that are totally related to each other. The first one is that the current situation, although we have to admit it's a little bit better, but still it's insufficient. There is still many Palestinians who are not eating or having enough drinking water or any kind of medical supply, but it's to a certain extent a little bit better thanks to the effort of Egypt, who has managed to force Israel to accept more trucks and more humanitarian aid to enter there. But I think on another scale also, Egypt is warning from any operation, big or small, into the Rafah enclave, because actually this will lead to a total massacre of the Palestinian civilian population there. Because we are talking about over 1.5 million who are cornered in this area, and the idea of Israel entering in any kind of operation, knowing that those civilians are totally helpless and defenseless. They cannot defend themselves. They don't have any protection whatsoever. They are living in tents. And on the other hand, we have Israel with the full-fledged military coming from the United States, and even we have a new deal of $26 billion to help to arm Israel more to its teeth, to the point that one wonders, I mean, against whom these kind of arms are going to be directed. It doesn't make sense, actually, that these top-notch arms are going to be directed towards defenseless people, but unfortunately these are the rules of war that Israel has chosen, and the United States have helped Israel to achieve it. So we hope that this will end very soon, and that the warnings by Mr. Sameh Shoukry to Israel that it should not enter Rafah will be understood and that we can spare the life of the Palestinian and of the Israeli hostages at the same time, and to stop the war at this point. It's enough that we have reached almost 34,000 Palestinian killed, plus tens of thousands of wounded during these 200 days that have elapsed.
Right. Well, sir, what's your perspective on some countries' hesitation to recognize Israeli actions in the Palestinian territories as breaches of international law?
Well, the idea is that those countries actually are still cornered in the old narrative, which is Israel is a country that is surrounded by enemies who want the annihilation of their state. And that's why we have to defend Israel by all means. And by all means, even if this would mean killing more Palestinians and seizing more land and so on. And as I said earlier, that the narrative is starting to change. And luckily that we have other media than the conventional media that open people's eyes and raise their awareness about the reality of the situation. And this will definitely be concretized in a very clear picture in the coming years to come about the reality of the situation and about the truth and the just cause that we are defending. But unfortunately, this is not eminent, since the administrations are still the same ones who believe of the right of Israel to defend itself, no matter they are defending themselves against whom and by which cause. So this is the problem. This is why we are living in this. I mean, we have people who are ready to defend the Palestinian with all what they have, and yet we have administrations who are ready to take them and put them in prisons, or even throw them away from their jobs and fire them from their work and so on, because they are supporting what they consider a terrorist movement. I don't know what they mean by terrorist movement when we are talking about Palestinian refugees. Civilian Palestinian refugees are not terrorists, and thus who are defending them is neither anti-Semite, neither he is defending terrorism. He's just defending people who have and need the right to autodetermination on their own land.
Well, I would like to thank you so much, Ambassador Medhat Meligy, former assistant to the foreign minister. Many thanks for your insight. And dear viewers, now we move back to our special reports. According to local authorities, the UN Office of Humanitarian Affairs said the number of people displaced by clashes from rural areas in northern Ethiopia has increased to more than 50,000. More details.
As an international community expressed concern about the violence involving fighters from rival regions, the United Nations said that more than 50,000 people have been displaced by clashes in a disputed area in northern Ethiopia. The United Nations said, citing local authorities in the disputed area, which is claimed by Tigray and neighboring Amhara, that the number of people displaced by the armed clashes in Alamata town and Royo, Zata and Afal since 13th and 14th of April has reached more than 50,000. It added that the humanitarian situation is dire, with thousands of women and children in need to board humanitarian support to survive. Amhara forces occupied Raya Almata in southern Tigray during a two-year war between Ethiopia's government and regional Tigrayan authorities. Under a peace deal between Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government and Tigrayan authorities, Amhara forces, which backed federal troops during the conflict, were due to withdraw from Raya Almata after the agreement was signed in Pretoria in November 2022. It is impossible to verify the situation on the ground independently, as media access to northern Ethiopia is heavily restricted. Reports of the fighting have sparked alarm among the international community, with the embassies of several nations, including the United States, Japan, Britain, and France, on Saturday calling for dialogue and urging the de-escalation and protection of civilians. During the war, Amhara forces occupied and remained in control of Western Tigray, a disputed region claimed by both regions.
Welcome back, and now we move on to this report on Egypt regaining the control of the Sinai Peninsula. Let's check out this report.
On the 25th of April 1988, Israel withdrew the last of its soldiers from the Sinai Peninsula, leaving the desert wilderness to Egypt as provided by the first treaty of peace between Israel and an Arab country. The turnover of the 7,500 square miles of territory representing the last third of the peninsula under Israeli control was accomplished without fanfare as a reflection of Israel's sadness and disquiet. Shortly after dawn, a single Israeli flag bearing a blue Star of David against a white field was lowered at Sharm el-Sheikh, the southern outpost that commands the strategic approach to the Strait of Tiran and Gulf of Aqaba. Several hours later, the Egyptians raised their flag at Sharm el-Sheikh and at Rafah on the Mediterranean coast near the chain link fence that marks the new international border and divides the city. Egyptian runners brought torches lit in Cairo. A band played, colorful carpets were set out, and there were piles of flowers. The withdrawal ended nearly 15 years of Israeli control over the peninsula. After the 1948 war, in which Egypt used the last coastal strip from the Suez Canal to El Arish as a main supply route to Arab forces, Israel captured part of northern Sinai and then withdrew under intense pressure from Britain and the United States. After the 1956 war, in which Egypt barred Israeli shipping through the Strait of Tiran, Israel captured most of the peninsula, but then withdrew in the face of an American ultimatum. All of Sinai was captured again during the Six-Day War of 1967, and it served as a crucial buffer for Israel during the War of 1973. The 25th of April's withdrawal completes a phased pullout that began in 1974, 5 years before the peace treaty, when the United States helped negotiate the separation of Egyptian and Israeli forces, and Israel pulled back from the east bank of the canal.
And dear viewers, that brings us to the end of this edition of Africa Today. Many thanks for watching and stay coming up here on TV International.